All right, it is restring time. I just picked up these D'Addario tape wound bass strings, which, if I'm being honest, I had never heard of before. So I'm excited to try these guys out. But before that, I'm going to talk a little bit about types of bass strings, scale length, and a viola bass, which is what these little guys are going to go on. Most bass guitar and guitar strings use what's known as round wound. This takes a round wire and wraps it around a solid wire core. These components are usually made of nickel, steel, phosphor bronze, or a combination of them. They have a distinct sound and feel and is most common on fretted instruments. Flat wound strings have the same core, but the outer wrap is flat. This is more common on classical instruments like the upright bass, violin, and viola. They're also commonly used on fretless bass guitars. Tape wound strings are kind of like a combination of the two. They start off as a round wound string and then are covered with a coating, in this case, nylon. This provides a smoother feel like the flat wound, but still behaves like the round wound. Scale refers to the length of the bass guitar and is measured from the nut to the bridge. Most modern bass guitars are what's known as long scale, which is 34 inches or more. Short scale basses are generally any bass that's 31 inches or less. The general advantage for a short scale is that the frets are smaller and can be easier to play, especially if you have smaller hands. There also might be less frets, 22 as opposed to 24 with the long scale basses. This usually isn't a disadvantage because, be honest, how often do you play above the 20th fret on a bass guitar? My bass is 31.5 inches, so technically it's a medium scale bass, and I actually found strings that were for medium scale, so that's what I ended up purchasing. A viola bass is a bass guitar with the body like a viola. It is hollow-bodied as opposed to most electric guitars are solid body. It was most famously played by Paul McCartney, which is why often you'll hear it referred to as a Beatle bass. Now, Paul McCartney played a Hofner. This here is a Rogue, which is musicians' friends' kind of generic brand, if you will. They're actually pretty good quality for the price. I wasn't about to spend a lot of money on this guitar back in the day. I just wanted something neat and fun and different sounding. That's why I got it in the first place. The electronics can be a little confusing. That has something to do with the way Hofner designed it back in the day. For this purposes of testing, I'm just going to leave it on the rhythm mode for the most part. All the volumes on and both the switches, bass and treble, to the on position. All right, let's open this up. Pull tab here. Wow. Actually, I mean, they are nylon. Look at that. I mean, that is crazy to feel, crazy to see. They are black. That's pretty neat. Yeah, these are unlike any strings I have ever used before. I'm excited to put these on. For recording, I used my Mesa Boogie M9 carbine bass amplifier. I left all the EQ flat. This went into a matching 4x10 cab, and I mic'd it up using a Rode NT1A condenser. I used our Universal Audio LA610, which is a combination tube preamplifier and optical compressor. I love using this on bass guitar. I did about 3 to 6 dB gain reduction. I decided I also wanted to capture the ambient noise of this viola bass, since it is a hollow body and does produce more of a sound than your typical solid body basses. For this, I used a Rode NT1A small diaphragm condenser microphone going into our Focusrite ISA preamp, which is very clean and keeps it sounding natural. First, let's listen to some samples I recorded before switching out the strings, just for comparison. These are nickel round wound strings, and to be honest, they're quite old. Okay, let's put these on that viola bass and see what they sound like. What do you think, Frank? You ready? Yeah, let's rock. For the most part, I did not film me restringing this thing because it doesn't exactly provide good TV. And I'm pretty glad I did not. I ran into a lot of problems. Honestly, I don't think I ever have restrung this bass before. The low E string actually got stuck in the saddle. I had to take all the strings apart so I could unlock the saddle and pry that string out. One advantage to doing that was I found out it is a floating bridge. It's not actually attached to the body. It's only held in place by the tension of the strings. This made it a lot more difficult, though, to putting the strings back on. The E string I had a lot of trouble fitting back into the saddle. It actually didn't fully pull into it until I started tightening the string. And there you have it. I actually really like the look. It looks different and cool. Okay, so these feel pretty weird to play. They feel kind of rubbery, obviously, because it has the nylon on it. So they're kind of sticky, but they slide easy. It's hard to describe. There isn't much fret noise. I believe that's one of the points of it, so that's kind of neat. But the feel is just weird, but I think I like it. Wow. All right. So let's try it plugged in. To be honest, I am quite surprised at how different these strings sound. I knew they would feel different, but there's definitely a different tone. You might think it's a little dull, and yeah, I could agree with that, but you know, it's what it is. It doesn't sound like any of my other bass guitars, which is exactly what I want to go for. I have plenty of other electric bass guitars with various pickups that all kind of do a different take on the same sound. While this one I think has a really different sound. It's closer to an upright bass, which is exactly what these strings are meant to kind of mimic, both the sound and feel of. There wasn't much of a difference between the two strings with the ambient microphone, which isn't too surprising because an electric bass isn't really meant to be mic'd up in this manner. I just wanted to do it for comparison's sake. And there you have it. I hope this was something different for a lot of bass players, and I really hope some people do try these out. Thanks for watching.